Hey guys, this is Joe Duckemeyer with Screen Rant. We were here at Comic-Con 2023. I am with Chuck Russell. How you doing, Chuck?
Great. Happy to be here.
I'm happy that you're here too. Now, we were just reminiscing about Comic-Con and how it used to be. And now it's kind of like back to that this year.
It's back to the beginning where it's really just about the fans and the comics and the games. With the bigger corporate studios aren't here this year. But it's great to see the fans have the run of the place.
Absolutely. It really is. Now, we're here to talk about Witchboard. It was a classic film that was made. Now we're bringing it back. Tell me why you think Witchboard needed a remake.
For the same reason I felt The Blob needed a remake. strictly, I felt I could explode that film, reimagine The Blob at the time. Same thing occurred to me with Witchboard. It's great that this is a part of horror real estate that the audiences have a good spot in their heart for still, and I've just brought a whole new sensibility to the film.
I love that. Now, for those that may not be familiar with Witchboard, what is Witchboard?
Well,
the classic film.
The classic was really the original Ouija films, and done a bit on a shoestring budget, but done very well, and was famous for Tawny Katane being one of the leads, who was an MTV star at the time. That's how many people remember it.
Yeah, she was a music video vixen, I believe that they called her back in the day.
We've done something that's quite a bit edgier. We were very fortunate, and Jamie Campbell Bower from Stranger Things was available and plays a key role, and it was amazing working with him and Madison Eisman and Aaron Dominguez. We have a great young cast, and I'm really excited about the film.
Now, you're not only directing this movie, you're also writing this movie. Can you talk to me about how different it is directing something that you wrote opposed to directing somebody else's vision?
I always, as a director, you ultimately end up consuming the films in any case from someone else's script or mine. I often polish a script. But I've done a couple of original writings, including The Third Nightmare on Elm Street, which was my first gig as a director. You know what you want more, of course, if you've written it, and I tend to know my shots better going right. I've imagined them enough in writing and rewriting and budgeting, so it's a real pleasure. And then the trick is, this is a tip for all you directors or future directors out there, you got to let your actors take the lead. You can't overwork your own imagination. It's like having an amazing chemistry set. We have to see what the actors are bringing to the role and maybe even leave a little room for improv. Get off yourself with your lines and see what the actors bring to it.
I love that piece of advice. Now, we're in a renaissance in Hollywood with a lot of remakes. What's the key to making a great remake?
I don't look at remakes in general. It's, for me personally, it's so specific.
Oh, okay.
I knew what I wanted to do with Witchboard. I know a lot. There's a very interesting legacy with the Wiccan world and some of the ancient things that come from Wicca. And there's just something in my head, I still feel that's very resonant, and there's a whole modern movement towards it as well. Great elements for a horror film.
That's amazing. Now, excuse me, how do you balance and stay true to the original while making this completely your own with Witchboard?
We stayed true to the vibe of the original. Kevin Tenney, who wrote the original, is our source. But I really wanted to cut loose and give something to the fans that they've never seen before. And I'll let you guys judge if we pulled it off.
So let me ask you, so fans that are longtime fans of Witchboard, what are you most excited for them to explore with this new film?
There's some, look, I story, character, and of course the scares.
Sure.
They're all about the scares. We do give them my own version of the famous shower scene. And I had to top anything I've done or that was done in the original. And I actually think we pulled it off.
That's incredible. Now, talk to me about, like, horror movies in general. It's all about crafting the scares. What's your philosophy behind crafting a good scare?
The same thing as getting a good laugh in a comedy. Horror and comedy are very similar, surprisingly. It's all about tension and payoff. It's setups and payoff. So there's a very certain timing. And that's the joy of the editing room, is you have complete control again after the set to stretch a moment, to try to figure out what is the exact timing you feel the audience will respond to.
It's incredible. Now, can you talk to me a little bit about the casting process and what your cast brought to their roles that weren't necessarily on the page?
Yeah, of course. Look, Madison Eisman, who you know from Jumanji and the Annabelle series, is an amazing young actress. She was my anchor to the drama thread in this film, and she's just a super pro. And she's has one of the best cinema screams I've ever heard in my life.
Really?
Yes, check it out.
That's amazing.
And Jamie Campbell Bower was the inspiration. I saw Jamie in Stranger Things, as a lot of people did. I just thought, I have got to move this young man up to the next point in his career, and he just grabbed the opportunity. So he's I think, a wonderful surprise in this film. It brings a lot of credibility to the role.
Now, originally, Witchboard was 3 films. Do you plan on expanding the franchise, following suit with its predecessor?
It would be a fun game to play it out, for sure. We definitely set it up. In our film, The Witchboard, there was only one. It's a little bit like the way I played the mask in The Mask.
Sure.
It's an ancient artifact. It's a pendulum board. This has got nothing to do. Actually, pendulum boards predated Ouija boards. The Pope in the 1700s outlawed pendulum boards. That was actually the origin of Ouija boards. It was, you're not allowed to have a pendulum, or you'd get burned as a witch in those days.
Whoa.
So this is sort of where it all came from originally. And visually, a pendulum board is a whole wonderful device for us in cinema.
You know, I love that this film is set in New Orleans, because I feel like New Orleans has a vibe like no other city.
There is
in the United
nothing
States.
like New Orleans.
There isn't.
It has that legacy. I don't know what it is, but it's a magical place.
It is. Talk to me about how the energy of that city kind of helped when you were doing Witchboard.
Look, we were inspired by New Orleans. I'm still going back to shoot a little more in New Orleans. But one of the tricks of this film is there was a lot happening in the 1700s in this story.
Yeah.
And we shot some buildings that were from the 1700s in Old Montreal.
Whoa.
So it's going to have a special flavor to it between the two cities.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Are there any other remake or any other classic horror films that you have your eye on and possibly want to?
I tell you, both The Blob and Witchboard, with respect to the films, were a great palette for me, but there was room for improvement. I don't know why people remake great films. I've been offered good films to remake that have been remade over the years, and I wouldn't touch them because they were terrific.
Yeah, that's a great point, because actually I had this conversation last night about Back to the Future. I feel like that's a movie that can never be remade.
I agree.
It's a masterpiece.
I agree.
What are some untouchable films that you never want to see remade?
Oh, I mean, so many classics. Butch and Sundance, which one of the films that inspired me as a kid, because the casting with Paul Newman and Robert Redford. If you want me to reach back to the classics, why would you touch films like that?
I agree.
So I think, Hollywood has no shame when they do those things. So I apologize for people that don't like the concept of remakes, but what it does is it helps. This is a truly independent film. It helped me get everything I need to do a great film independently, to have the legacy of a great film like Witchboard behind us.
Now, talk to me about Emily and Christian's relationship in Witchboard and at the lengths they will go to for each other.
Well, I'm going to say, I'm going to try to do that without giving too many spoilers. But it's a great love relationship, which I like at the center of my films. They're ready to get married. Emily has a background history with drugs, and using drugs as a metaphor, I think the occult is also a kind of drug. Even an astrologist, when they're right, suddenly becomes addictive. That's like a gateway drug in the occult. So if you get a prediction that comes true, you become more and more curious. And I'm telling you, and I'm telling our audience, we're not promoting the occult. It's a dangerous world, even at the kind of gaming level of Ouija boards and things like that. We are in a spiritual world. We're in a battle between good and evil in all of our lives in different ways. Go for the good, people.
I love it.
That's my message.
I love it. When can fans expect to see Witchboard?
Coming up in 2024, we're trying to figure out exactly when it will be released, and because we are the very best kind of independent film, we have our choice of distributors, and I just need to finish my film the way we started it.
There we go. I love it. Well, Chuck, thank you so much for joining us here at Screen Rant for Comic-Con 2023. I hope you go back down to the floor and explore more and get that
Oh, no,
vibe.
I'm wandering around.
You are.
Yeah, between the great creators and some of the off-brand comics, that I'm delighted to see that still here at Comic-Con, along with the majors.
You and me both. Thanks so much for joining us, Chuck. I appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Thank you. Pleasure.